Man is the warmest place to hide in John Carpenter's The Thing, the ultimate in alien terror. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 8th entry of the John Carpenter review series. Today we're taking a look at what is considered by many to be John Carpenter's best film, considered by others to be the greatest horror film ever. We're looking at John Carpenter's 1982 epic, The Thing. The Thing features an ensemble cast that includes Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley, among others. The screenplay for The Thing was written by Bill Lancaster and based off of the short story entitled Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. The short story was initially adapted into the 1951 film Thing from Another World, and this is less of a remake and more of a readaptation of the short story. You do see elements of the previous film in here, and it would not be a proper John Carpenter review without making quick mention that we do see The Thing from Another World in one of his previous films, Halloween. We see that one on the TV for a couple shots, so that was some beautiful foreshadowing by John Carpenter in his own career. In this film, a group of American research scientists essentially have their world turned upside down and torn apart and turned into something that it should not ever have to be for anybody, when a sled dog shows up being chased by a Norwegian helicopter. Upon defusing the situation with the Norwegians, aka Gary shoots the Norwegian in the face, they take the dog in, and the dog turns out to not be a dog, but a vicious alien life form that can assume the shape of anything it chooses. What ensues from there is a gory tale of paranoia. I will start off by saying that this is probably the most atmospheric of John Carpenter's career in terms of just everything from the setting to the tension that goes on in the film, playing with the themes of paranoia. All the snow really adds a lot to the overall atmosphere of the film. It's one of those films that when you watch it, especially if you say watch it on a really cold winter's day when there is snow out on the ground, this is definitely a film to put in, and you feel that there's a sense of immersion when you watch this on a snowy day, and that's an absolutely great feeling. This is also part of John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, which also consists of Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness. Those films will be covered here in the future also. And this is, of course, the most atmospheric of those three. From start to finish, this film possesses probably some of the best tension in a Carpenter film. I know I said Escape from New York is one of the best exercises. It's really hard to say which film does have the best tension, but this one has that tension from the opening frame to the final frame. I mean, we start with the Norwegians chasing the sled dog, all the way to the final frame where it's just Childs and Mac, and they're just sort of waiting their certain death, knowing that one of them might be the Thing, and just being left on that little cliffhanger. You don't get that resolution in this film, and that just leaves you walking away with a sense of tension that you felt throughout the whole experience, so it's one that really has no choice but to stick with you. The 12 main characters that we get in this film are all pretty great. Some of them are obviously going to be more developed than others, but they all bring something different to the table in terms of what they offer, of course, to the group. But as a viewer, there's something with each of these characters that you can kind of grab onto. And again, some of them are a little less developed than others, but that's what happens when you have 12 characters in a more or less one-setting film. But they really do help play into all the suspense, because with the Thing going around taking the identities of people as it chooses, you never know which one of them is going to be the Thing at any given point. And that really does add to the suspense that is probably going to be mentioned throughout this whole video's runtime. But you do believe the actors when they're playing their characters in a really paranoid manner. You feel their anxiety, you feel their paranoia, you feel the distrust amongst everyone. It's everything on that is just absolutely amazing. And this is another one of those films where uniquely you almost want every character to survive just because they're well written enough, and again, it really comes down to the way they're acted. And if you've seen these guys in other films and you like their characters in those, you already have that sort of attachment. I mean, everybody loves Kurt Russell. If you don't, tell me why down below. But he's one of those characters you want to survive. You want him to win. You want Windows, played by Tom G. Waits, to win, because if you've seen The Warriors, you may have liked him as Fox, even though he's unceremoniously thrown to the side in there. Wilford Brimley, I mean, we all love him from, well, you know, the oatmeal commercials. The other thing too is, aside from feeling like you know these actors just from what you've seen them in, you feel like you know these characters just because we get some time with them before things start to get out of hand. For instance, you see Childs and Palmer sitting in their bunk. They're watching old VHS tapes of different TV shows they've had recorded. It's like, nope, I've seen this. So with that, you get the feeling that, okay, they've been here for a little too long, and you know, they're just sharing a big old joint together. And that's another thing too. You look out for little nuances like that when they're sharing a smoke or when they're sharing a drink. You never know, okay, so if this person's assimilated, and they share this with that other person, does that make this other person a thing? Like, you don't get a full sense of clearance on that. And I think it's one of those things that's just really, really interesting. You gotta look out for all these little meticulous bits and pieces that really just could answer a lot of questions. So this film bears repeat viewings on account of that. So these characters are a lot of fun too, because they have their own little instances of humor, some of it being more tasteful than others. For instance, we have in the opening scene, we see Mac playing his chess game. Now he pours himself a little glass of scotch, takes a little sip, and feels that the computer is cheating him on the game. So, you know, he takes the glass of scotch, ice and all, pours it right into the console, totally kills the computer. And then we see him outside in the next shot, just drinking the scotch straight from the bottle. That's one of those, I don't know, I just get a kick out of that. I don't know why that's so funny to me. We have Knowles, after Bennings is trying to recover from getting shot in the leg. You know, Knowles is in the kitchen getting everything set up for dinner time and whatnot. And, you know, he's bumping into Stevie Wonder. Bennings tells him, hey, turn that crap down. And, you know, he tells him through the little speaker device on the wall. It's funny that Knowles goes and pretends to turn down the music, and he's the only one in the kitchen. It's like I've heard people mention that too, just that it's like he doesn't have to do that for any purpose. It's like he's just doing that to titillate himself, and it's one of those things, once you notice it, it's like the funniest thing, especially because when he does do the little gesture to turn the volume down, he doesn't even do it near a knob, just kind of goes up and brushes it right alongside it. It's just fucking ridiculous. I love it. After the craziness that is the blood test scene and all that, we have Gary with the I don't want to spend the rest of this winter tied to this couch. That whole that outburst is absolutely freaking amazing. Nice way to sort of calm us down after that scene. Palmer as a stoner who's on kind of talking about the conspiracy theories and shit, like, yeah, the aliens taught the Incas everything they know. Or was it the Aztecs? I forget. But that whole bit when he's doing that stoned philosophy lesson, like, I just dig that. I don't know. Sometimes some movies can nail the stoner characters. I think they did pretty good with Palmer here. Blair, when they have Blair quarantined and he's isolated out there in the shack, when he's insisting that he's alright, he's all better now, let me come in. Like, you just see the happy little noose hanging in the doorway there. Like, just when they're looking through the little when they're looking through the hole in the door to talk to him, you just see separating him from the outside, there's just that noose right there in the middle. It's like, well, he's hanging in there. I don't know if he's doing alright, though. Just a great instance of sort of dark, off-kilter humor to be added to this film that I really appreciate. Aside from the oral exchanges, like, of course, drinks and smokes and whatnot, another thing to look out for is wardrobe changes, too. I've seen some videos where people break down a lot of the who is the Thing and who's not throughout the film. At what points are they the Thing? Like, if you watch out for their clothes, you might be able to get hints, and that's something too that we do see the Thing does. Like, when Bennings is assimilated, you see his bloody clothes on the chair, and you see him being assimilated over in the corner when Windows comes in to tell him, hey, you know, I need the keys to lock up, I need to get some sleep. So when clothes just start appearing in different places, that creates this, it adds to the sense of paranoia and distrust among everybody. And that's one of those great little details that I don't think a lot of people would really be able to pick up on their first viewing. So again, it bears repeat viewings. So if it's in the same little 6-hour window within the film, and you see this character just wearing a different set of clothes than they were in the scene before, it really makes you wonder. Another thing that's really great in this film is the special effects by Rob Bottin, or is it Rob Bottin? I think it's Rob Bottin. I'm not sure exactly the right way to pronounce that. I've heard it said both ways. But the special effects are top tier in this film. I could just leave it at that, but some of the standouts are, of course, when Norris's chest opens up and the head melts off, and it's probably the central effects set piece in this film. It's the one everybody remembers. The little head spider thing, that's freaking crazy. The dog kennel, that's just a very disturbing scene in general, especially if you're an animal lover. But that whole sequence is freaking insane. And when they're doing the autopsy on one of the assimilated things, just the way everything's like fused together. You see human parts, you see dog parts. It's just really, really crazy to think, wow, somebody built this shit by hand just to please our eyeballs. That's just absolutely mind-blowing. I could go on about all the effects set pieces, but you know, you need to watch the film to really appreciate it. You could have somebody tell you what they're about and tell you in massive detail everything that's going on with it, but you won't appreciate it until you see it yourself. So the special effects are definitely one of the top tier notches in this film, one of the things that's going to give it a high rating at the end of the day. Also, Ennio Morricone's score in this film is really great because Ennio Morricone, first of all, is probably one of the great cinema composers. He's done a lot of Italian films, that's where we most know him from. He did the Sergio Leone westerns, the Man with No Name trilogy, so if you like the good, bad, and the ugly theme, that was him. I could go on about Ennio, so we're just gonna continue. What he does with the music here is very Carpenter-esque. If you listen to the score, you would think at first, oh, this is just your standard John Carpenter fare. No, it's Ennio Morricone doing essentially his version of what he believes a John Carpenter score would be, and it works out really well, and it's again goes to that whole thing I was talking about with John Carpenter's scores, where he makes it like the carpet, you know? Like he's setting up your apartment, it's the carpet, you're not supposed to know it too much, but it's supposed to bring everything together, and that's exactly what Ennio Morricone's score does here. This wouldn't be a proper John Carpenter review without mentioning the cinematography of Dean Cundey. What he does in this film, honestly, is some of his best work. You do have some of the standard Dean Cundey fare, where it's the wide shots that can be both wide but feel very claustrophobic at the same time. One notable example of that specific sense is the scene where Blair is going apeshit, breaking all the communication devices, shooting at everyone. Like that, of course the shot's very wide, but the room is small, and you get little close-in shots on windows. He's hiding between two cabinets, and you just feel everything that's going on in that room when you watch that. You feel the sense of, oh my god, this could be the end of everything for everybody. And of course, the whole film being set on a isolated research facility too just adds to that claustrophobia. So to kind of come back to the paranoia aspect one last time, the themes of paranoia, isolation, and a real loss of identity in this film, it really makes The Thing one of those films that is going to be one of the most universally terrifying, because those are all things that we can relate to as humans, especially in recent years, that those have all kind of been things that we've had to deal with as just a whole mass society. It's like you feel you can't trust anybody anymore. It's identity, all that stuff. I'm not going to go into all the socio-political elements of that, but I'm just going to mention that this film definitely is still relevant because of that. Well, a couple other things I want to mention before we wrap this up. The blood test scene, I think, is probably one of the best exercises in tension in cinema, period. It's one of those moments that I feel like it can still catch you off guard even if you've seen this film a few times. You're expecting for the blood to just freak out. But when it happens, it still catches you and kind of jolts you, and the way everything goes crazy from there. And I love Gary's whole thing at the end of that.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. And when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
Another great little moment too, if you're on your phone, you're not going to notice something like this. The scene where Windows and Bennings are in the storeroom, we see the sheet that has one of the things under it, one of the dead things. We just see that sheet move a little bit, like before the blood starts dripping and before Bennings' assimilation. It's just those little details that if you're not paying attention to this film, you're not going to pick up on it, and you're not going to get the full experience that this film deserves. Here's another thing that I picked up on too and thought that maybe it was just coincidence, but it was confirmed in the John Carpenter and Kurt Russell version of the audio commentary. There are various sort of fades and cuts throughout the film that kind of throw off your sense of time in relation to the plot, that really creates these, you could say, windows of time where people could be getting assimilated and we don't know, and it just throws everything off, and it puts you in a situation where you as an audience member feel like you can't trust certain characters anymore. And seeing the Norwegian base in shambles when they go to investigate that is one of those scenes that's really, really eerie. It's, of course, got the great atmosphere. This whole movie does, so I don't know why I keep mentioning that. But it's just one of those scenes that when you see them walking through, you see everything's decimated. You see the guy who's slit his throat and slit his wrists open, and he's just frozen, like his blood is frozen. Like, you see all that. You see everything that has happened there, and we don't know completely what has happened there. And that's just one of those things that really makes me appreciate that I have not seen the 2011 version of the film, the prequel, if you will. I have not seen that as of this recording, and just watching that scene makes me appreciate that I have not seen it. And real quick, while we're here, let's do the Carpenter Regular game, where of course we go through the actors who appear in this film and others. We have, of course, Kurt Russell making his third appearance in a John Carpenter film. We have Keith David making his first of two appearances. We'll see him a little bit later. And we have a voice cameo from Adrienne Barbeau in her fourth and final contribution to a John Carpenter film. That is really it as far as the regulars go. At the end of the day, guys, with everything this film has to offer, from the themes of paranoia and loss of identity, add to that the acting and the way the film is shot, the way it sounds, the way it looks, everything this film has to offer makes it one of the greatest horror films that you could go back and revisit or even watch for the first time. If you haven't gotten to it yet, better late than never. It took me a few years to be able to get to it. It is safe to say that this is truly John Carpenter's magnum opus in his career, and that might be an objective truth. I'm pretty sure anyone who doesn't like The Thing is an assimilation and is not to be trusted. With that, John Carpenter's The Thing receives 5 Norwegians who are just trying to help out of 5. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to do whatever you'd like with all the little icons down here. Let me know what you thought of The Thing. And we will be seeing you guys next time when we take a look at the collision of two worlds. That was John Carpenter and Stephen King with 1983's Christine. If only our main characters spoke Norwegian, they could have avoided this whole thing.